Okay, now if you have a older mower or something like that and you want to add a starting solenoid, on most of the lawnmower ones, if you go to buy a solenoid, if you have 3 wires, 2 big terminals and 1 small one, then usually it'll ground here where it mounts. If you have 4, then the second terminal, the second small terminal will take a wire and go directly to ground. And the other one will go to starter switch. Now if you get a Ford truck solenoid, this kind, or I don't have one laying here, I don't think. If you have the other one that sets up the other way, you know, this is different, okay? That ground wire does not apply to automotive ones, just to the newer solenoids. Some may look something like this with 1 terminal only. Okay. Now, usually if you have no start solenoid, you'll have some kind of a big conglomeration like this under there with your battery terminal leads going right to the terminals on the starter, or I mean the ignition switch. Now here's one I can show you. And it's a high amp ignition switch when it's like that. So it's got the bigger lugs. But then come along the solenoid, and this was a better idea because you could use one of these lower amp ones. A lot of times they're just a black plug that plugs on the back of these or whatever. But any of these will be low amp. You'll need like a starter solenoid or something with them. Now if you don't have a starter solenoid, a lot of times you're probably going to have a starter generator. And this, I'm basing this off of my Sears stuff, but a lot of other ones will be kind of the same. But if you have a just say a starter generator. Point. You'll have a terminal coming off here, one here, F and A, and you'll have a battery with a positive terminal, and you'll have an ignition switch, and there'll be a B on there and an S terminal. So what's going to happen is the power from the battery is going to come into the switch on a big lug, and so it has to be a big cable. The reason it has to be a big cable is because it has to carry the load through there. And then when you turn the key all the way over to start, it energizes the start terminal on the back of the key switch and comes up here to the A terminal. And when you energize that, that makes it spin. Alright? Now, if you want to do away with that, okay, say your battery's up here still. Positive terminal, negative terminal. You don't have an ignition switch, and you're still going to have a B terminal and an S terminal. You're still going to have your starter generator thing with the F and A terminal. And we're going to need to add a starter solenoid switch in here somewhere. So let's just say, here it is. And we're just going to do the same as this one. Okay, we'll do a 3 terminal one. So either way, we still got to have a battery source to the key switch, and we still got to have a signal from the key switch out to tell it when to start. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the battery wire and we'll run it right over here, and we're going to go to one of the lugs on the starter solenoid. Okay, be one of these lugs right here, big ones. Now we kind of bypass the key switch, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to put a ring terminal on here, and we can put a smaller wire to come over here to the B on the battery terminal of the ignition switch. So now we have power coming to here to the solenoid. We have power going to the key switch. Okay, start solenoid. So now we still got to get to the starter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the other lug, and we brought the battery power to here. We'll take the other lug, the big one, and we're going to hook a cable to that and go to the A terminal. Again, you're going to be using big. Okay, so this one here is going to be a bigger cable. And this one's going to be a bigger cable. Now we still got to have the signal to the key switch to go somewhere. So off of the S, you're going to run a smaller wire over here to the start solenoid, which will be the small terminal here. And that way, whenever you turn the key to start, it'll send the signal down through here into this one. It's going to create the magnetic force. It's going to connect these two terminals together. And when it connects the two terminals together right here, it's going to send the full battery power straight to the starter generator. So you come from this to this. If that makes any sense. You power the battery terminal, the key switch from the starter solenoid. If you brought the battery wire to this one, you'd hook it to there and run it back to the key switch, where the old time it was powered straight to the battery big lug terminal. And then the key switch just energizes the solenoid instead of sending the main power down through here. So this part takes the main power now, and the switch doesn't take the big power. Now here's a regular Ford truck solenoid, one of the older ones. A lot of people use these. See, this one only has 3, so you're safe. This will be the S. This usually goes to the starter over here, and usually this one will go to the battery. But if you have another terminal sticking out of there on one of these, it's not the same as the 4 of the lawnmower ones. So don't ground a Ford solenoid like this. Don't ground that extra terminal out. Only on the lawnmower solenoids. Okay, so you got a switch like this, and it's bad, and you don't put a starter solenoid in, you want to go to a different switch. You got to know what kind of ignition you have. Now if you have a coil that's like this and sits right here beside the flywheel, you would have a magneto ignition, which means to kill the engine or kill the spark, this little wire here would go back to a ground on the ignition switch, which I don't know if you'll be able to see it here, but right there's the M terminal. See the letters there, A, over here's a B, and with the M's right here. So when you turn the key off, the M terminal right here shorts to ground. And it's connected to this terminal in the coil, so it shuts the ignition down. Now to do that, you got to have an M terminal. I don't know if you can see it on here. There's an M terminal. So this is a magneto switch. Sometimes, which I don't know if you'll be able to see it. So I don't know if you can see that on this terminal. But right here beside my fingernail, there's a letter there. So you gotta look on the side of the blade. Sometimes they're marked. Usually an S or an M will be marked. If you look at this one real close, it has a letter stamped in it. So you can see the M and the S. But anyway, now, if you would have something like this, that sticks on the outside of the engine, that's called a battery ignition. So what happens is when you turn the key on, the positive side of the coil gets power to it, and then it can make spark. When you turn the key off, it cuts power off. And that's where you're going to find a switch like this. And over here, I don't know if you can see it, see the I terminal? That's for ignition. That sends power out to a coil like this. So if you have an external coil, a battery powered coil, you got to have an ignition switch with an I on it. Alright? Can't have one with an M on it. And if you have a coil like this, you have to have one of these with an M. M for magneto and I for ignition. Hope that helps some.